Episode 1 Sage Valmiki. Long ago, across the fertile plains nourished by the sacred Ganga, vast forests stretched in quiet majesty. These lands were home to many hermitages where sages lived lives of discipline, prayer, and contemplation. The air itself seemed steeped in spiritual calm. Through these serene regions flowed the gentle river Thamsa. On its tranquil banks stood the ashram of a revered sage, Valmiki. Valmiki was celebrated for his deep wisdom and devotion. He was born to the sage Prachetasa Muni and was therefore also known as Prachetasa. From an early time, he dedicated himself to intense spiritual practice. For many years, he remained absorbed in meditation, his awareness turned entirely toward the divine, untouched by the passage of the outer world. As the seasons came and went, nature quietly gathered around his still form. Soil, leaves, and tiny creatures gradually built an anthill that enclosed the meditating sage. In Sanskrit, such an anthill is called a Valmika. When his long period of penance finally reached completion, he emerged from this natural cocoon, transformed and radiant. From that moment, he became known to the world as Valmiki. One day, the celestial sage Narada arrived at Valmiki's hermitage. Seeing the divine visitor approach, Valmiki welcomed him with reverence and warmth. Following sacred custom, he offered water for cleansing, a gesture of honor and hospitality, and respectfully invited Narada to be seated. With deep reverence, Valmiki turned to the celestial sage Narada and spoke. "O revered one, your presence fills me with joy. I long to hear about a truly extraordinary human being, a man among men. Tell me of one who lives by righteousness and unwavering truth, one endowed with strength and unmatched courage. He should possess a noble character, conduct himself with such grace that all who meet him are drawn to him, and remain free from jealousy or pettiness. He must stand firm against evil and serve as a protector of the virtuous. If such a man walks this earth, I pray, reveal his story to me." Narada, radiant with wisdom, listened with great pleasure. He was no ordinary sage. Born of Lord Brahma himself, he journeyed freely across all realms: Swarga, the heavenly world; Martya, the realm of mortals; and Patala, the world below. Because he moved unhindered through these three domains, he was celebrated as Triloka Sanchari, the traveler of the three worlds, aware of all that unfolded within them. Valmiki's earnest question delighted Narada. He welcomed the opportunity to speak of a being worthy of such praise. "Sage Valmiki," Narada replied gently, "to find a person who embodies every quality you have described is exceedingly rare. Yet there is one who stands above all others, a noble soul of perfect virtue. He is Sri Rama, born in the illustrious Ikshvaku lineage." Narada continued, his voice rich with admiration. "Sri Rama is a warrior of exceptional strength and courage. Truthfulness defines him,
and virtue guides every action. He is wise, articulate, and persuasive in speech. His physical presence reflects his inner greatness, long-armed, broad-chested, graceful in form, and perfectly proportioned. His radiant appearance mirrors the nobility of his spirit. He went on, Rama possesses a clear understanding of righteousness and remains steadfast in truth. He honors his teachers and elders with devotion and lives for the welfare of those under his care. He stands as a destroyer of wrongdoing and a refuge for those who seek protection. Learned in the sacred knowledge of the four Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, he is equally skilled in their auxiliary disciplines, including Shiksha and Vyakarana. Narada continued his praise of Rama's greatness. He is learned in the remaining sacred disciplines that support Vedic knowledge, Chandasu, Jyotishya, Kalpa, and Nirukta. His understanding extends into the very heart of every branch of wisdom. Alongside the spiritual and intellectual mastery, Rama is also supremely skilled in archery and the arts of warfare. The sage went on, Rama's nature is gentle and compassionate toward all beings. When faced with questions of right and wrong, he judges without bias. Because of this purity of character, noble and virtuous people are naturally drawn to him, just as rivers inevitably flow toward the vast ocean. Narada's voice carried both admiration and reverence as he spoke further. In dignity, he resembles the boundless sea. In courage, he stands firm like the mighty Himalayas. His valor recalls that of Lord Vishnu himself, while his presence brings comfort like the cool radiance of the moon. Yet, when injustice demands action, his fury can blaze like a cosmic fire. Even so, he bears patience like the earth and gives generously like Kubera, Lord of wealth. Above all, Rama lives as the living embodiment of truth and righteousness. He then turned to Rama's life story. This jewel among men, radiant in virtue, is the eldest son of King Dasharatha. He wed Sita, the noble daughter of King Janaka. When preparations were underway to crown Rama as heir, the dark desire arose in the mind of his stepmother Kaikeyi. She insisted that her own son Bharata should take the throne and that Rama be sent into forest exile for 14 years. Without hesitation and resentment, Rama honored her demand. He departed for the wilderness accompanied by Sita and his devoted younger brother, Lakshmana. During their years in the forest, tragedy struck. The Rakshasa Ravana abducted Sita through cunning deception. Driven by love and duty, Rama searched tirelessly for her. In that journey, he formed an alliance with Sugriva, the heroic leader among the Vanaras. With their support, Rama marched upon Ravana's island, stronghold of Lanka, defeated the tyrant in battle, and freed Sita. Husband and wife were reunited at last. When the exile concluded, Rama returned to Ayodhya, welcomed with joy by his people. He accepted the crown and ruled in accordance with their wishes. Thus, Narada briefly recounted the life of Sri Rama. The tale was extraordinary. Its power and beauty deeply stirred Valmiki's heart. When Narada finally took his leave and departed, the story continued to echo within the sage's mind. The afternoon hour approached, the time appointed for ritual purification. Valmiki made his way toward the river to bathe. Valmiki set out toward the river to perform his afternoon rites, accompanied by his devoted disciple Bharadvaja. The waters of Tamasa shimmered with crystal clarity. Around them stretched a forest alive with gentle beauty. Soft green grass, lush foliage, and the soothing murmur of flowing water created an atmosphere of perfect calm. Nature seemed to celebrate its own harmony. Nearby, a pair of crauncha birds, graceful marsh herons, moved together in playful companionship. Their carefree dance added a touch of tenderness to the scene. Watching them, Valmiki felt his heart fill with quiet joy as he absorbed the serenity of the moment. But the peace shattered in an instant. From somewhere unseen, a hunter released an arrow. It struck the male bird with deadly force. Wounded and bleeding, the creature fell to the earth, writhing briefly before life left its body. The surviving mate cried out in piercing grief, a lament so raw that it stirred deep compassion in the sage. Valmiki was overcome with sorrow and indignation. To him, the hunter's act was cruel and unjust. Turning toward the man, he spoke in a voice charged with emotion, words that rose from grief and righteous anger alike. Ma nishada pratistham tvamagamaha shashvatihi samaha yat krauncha mithuna dekamavadhihi kamamohitam. O hunter, who has slain one of this loving pair without cause, may you never know lasting honor for this heartless deed. As the words left his lips, something extraordinary occurred. The utterance did not emerge as ordinary speech. Instead, it flowed in measured rhythm, carrying cadence and structure, a spontaneous verse shaped by emotion itself. Valmiki paused, astonished by what he had spoken. Bharadvaja too stood silent, sensing that they had witnessed something unprecedented. After a moment, Valmiki turned to his disciple and said, "Did you notice, Bharadvaja? The words I spoke carried rhythm and form. They can be sung, even set to melody and accompanied by the music of a veena. Since this verse arose from my sorrow, my shoka, let us call this new poetic form a shloka." Thus, in that moment of compassion and grief, the first poetic verse was born. Having regained his composure, Valmiki entered the river to complete his ritual bath. Standing upon its banks afterward, he offered sacred water in reverence to the sun god, continuing the rites with calm devotion. After completing his rituals, Valmiki returned to his hermitage. Surrounded by his disciples, he resumed the daily recitation of the Vedas and the duties of the ashram. Yet his thoughts would not settle. Again and again his mind returned to the tragic scene by the river, the fallen bird, the grieving cry of its mate, and the strange rhythmic verse that had burst from his lips in that moment of sorrow. While he was still reflecting on these events, a radiant presence filled the hermitage. Lord Brahma himself had arrived. Valmiki rose at once, overwhelmed with reverence and wonder. Bowing deeply, he welcomed the Creator with devotion and offered honors due to such a divine guest. With folded hands, he invited Brahma to be seated, spoke words of praise, and humbly inquired after his well-being. At Brahma's gentle indication, Valmiki sat nearby. Yet his mind remained quietly occupied with the incident of the Croncha birds. The all-knowing Lord perceived the sage's thoughts. With a knowing smile, Brahma spoke. Great sage, your heart is still dwelling on what occurred by the river today. The words you uttered took the form of measured verse. You rightly named it a shloka. Know that it was by my will that your grief shaped itself into a poetic rhythm for a purpose far greater than that single moment. Earlier today, Narada shared with you the brief account of Sri Rama's life. I now ask you to unfold that sacred story for the world in full. Compose it in these very shlokas, allowing the life of Rama to reveal itself to you as though you were witnessing each event directly. Your narration shall remain true in every detail. It will contain no falsehood, no distortion, and no embellishment born merely of fancy. In this way, your work will stand as both holy history and exalted poetry. As long as the sun and moon endure, as long as stars shine above and oceans continue their endless motion, people will remember and recite this composition. Through this creation, you shall be honored as the Adi Kavi, the first poet. May blessing accompany your endeavor. With these words, Lord Brahma vanished from sight. Left in profound silence, Valmiki sat absorbed in the divine command. His thoughts returned to the verse born of sorrow, the rhythmic utterance that had changed something within him. Slowly, he repeated the lines to himself, contemplating their cadence and meaning, sensing that a great poetic journey was about to begin. Valmiki repeated the sorrow-born verse again and again, letting its rhythm settle deep within his awareness. What had arisen from grief now took firm shape in his mind as poetry. As he reflected on the brief account of Sri Rama that Narada had shared, something extraordinary began to unfold. Through the grace of Lord Brahma and through the power of his own spiritual discipline, the events of Rama's life appeared before Valmiki with startling clarity. It was as if he were witnessing the story directly. The figures within that sacred tale seemed alive. They moved, spoke, rejoiced, and suffered before his inner vision, clothed in their distinctive garments and adorned with their ornaments. every scene revealed itself in vivid detail. From this living vision emerged a grand poetic work. Expanding upon Narada's concise narration, Valmiki shaped the entire saga into a composition of 24,000 verses. Thus was created the Ramayana, a vast epic rich in meaning, wisdom, and beauty, a treasury of spiritual and poetic brilliance. The poem resonated with the full spectrum of human emotion. The celebrated Navarasas, love, heroism, compassion, wonder, humor, fear, aversion, anger, and peace. Its verses flowed with musical cadence, capable of being rendered in the seven classical notes Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata, and Nishada, and accompanied gracefully by the veena. The sage's disciples listened in delight as the composition came to life through sound. When the epic was complete, Valmiki summoned Lava and Kusha, twin princes who lived in the hermitage, as his students. Gifted in music and disciplined in their training, the brothers were skilled in playing instruments such as the veena and possessed voices of remarkable sweetness. Dressed in the simple attire of ascetics, they shone with youthful grace reminiscent of the divine Ashwini twins. The boys approached their teacher with reverence, bowed deeply, and stood awaiting his instruction. With affection, Valmiki seated them near him and began teaching them the verses of Ramayana. Under his guidance, Lava and Kusha learned to sing the epic, their voices carrying its story with melody and devotion. And so, through divine grace and power of deep meditation, sage Valmiki transformed sorrow into poetry and poetry into an immortal epic. What began as compassion for a fallen bird blossomed into Ramayana, a sacred story filled with virtue, courage, love, and destiny. Guided by heavenly will, Valmiki gave the world a poem that would echo across ages. Entrusting this epic to the voices of Lava and Kusha, the sage ensured that Rama's story would be sung, remembered, and cherished for generations to come. Thus was born a tale that would outlive kingdoms, outshine time, and dwell forever in the hearts of humanity. And with that, the first chapter of this timeless journey comes to a close. The story of Rama is about to begin.